Good morning. My name is Dr. Allie Schermer, and I am a pelvic floor physical therapist. And today on this Amazon Live, we are going to talk a little bit about 3 exercises that you could do with your Pixie Cup Kegel weights. So we're going to start with the super basics, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about how you might use those Kegel weights and how to insert them. I'm actually pregnant. I'm 34 weeks pregnant, so I will not be actually using the Kegel weights today, but I will instruct you on how to use those. So what I have with me today, I have my Pixie Cup lube. I've got my set of Kegel weights, and so first thing when you're starting with what you want to do with the Kegel weights, you want to start with the lightest if you have never used them before. So that's going to be the white Kegel weight, down to the darkest is going to be the heaviest Kegel weight. So, once you get started, you can kind of play around with it. If the white one was too easy, then you just kind of move through the colors. Mine tend to get mixed up if my son ever comes and grabs my box of Kegel weights. So, but yes, so I would start with the lightest, which is the white. And then the other thing I have with me today, I have a couple things that come with your set of Kegel weights. So we've got just our quick how-to guide, which is just going to tell you, the super basics. So how to insert, how to clean, how to exercise, how to remove. So this is kind of your quick go-to guide. And then we've got the big guide. So this is a guide that I made in collaboration with Pixie Cup so that you will know how to exercise and use those Kegel weights. So the beginning is just a little bit of an introduction, and then we go through, the easiest to the hardest exercise. So when we start with what we're going to do today, we are going to start with the most basic pelvic floor exercise that you would want to know, and then we're going to work all the way through maybe just a couple of the harder ones. So we'll start with, like I said, not necessarily even just the easiest, but the most basic pelvic floor exercise that you can do, which is obviously a Kegel. So one thing that we'll see comments on is, I put the lightest weight in, and then as soon as I stand up, it falls out. So what happens when that happens is that Kegel weight is basically the easiest way to do a Kegel or pelvic floor exercise is in a laying down position. And the reason for that is because if you think of any principles of how our muscles work, we go from gravity eliminated to working against gravity. So the easiest way you can do a Kegel or use your Kegel weights is going to be laying on your back. For patients that come in that can't even do a Kegel when they're laying on their back, they can't feel it, I'm not feeling any activation with my exam, then I'm actually going to have them lay on their back with their hips propped up. So no, the goal is that you can do it functionally. You can do it when you're walking around. You can do Kegels with everyday activities. But for some people, when their pelvic floor is that weak, then we have to start on our back with those exercises. So that's kind of the first thing you want to assess. The second thing is determining if you're supposed to be using Kegel weights. So we want to avoid using Kegel weights if you have any pelvic floor tightness. Obviously, if you're pregnant, we're going to avoid during that time. And then, especially immediately postpartum. So you wouldn't want to use Kegel weights until you're cleared by your physician to, 1, be able to have sex, or 2, just feeling healed after a vaginal delivery. If you had a cesarean delivery, then again, that would be just something you'd want to communicate with your medical provider. But again, as far as anybody else, anybody is appropriate to use Kegel weights as long as they don't feel like they have pelvic pain with insertion, or an extremely tight pelvic floor. So those are the reasons why you might not use Kegel weights. But if you feel good about it, then we're going to go ahead and try. The second thing I'm going to say before we start doing the exercises is, if you can't squeeze those muscles and then let them go, we want to really work on that muscle coordination first. So you might work on some of these exercises before you actually use the Kegel weights. And the reason for that is because we don't want our muscles to be turned on all the time. You want to be able to squeeze and hold, and then you want to be able to let go. So the example I use for my patients is if we were going to the gym and you wanted to strengthen your biceps, you're not just gonna hold weights in your biceps all day, right? You're going to squeeze and then lengthen, squeeze and then lengthen. So our pelvic floor is the same way, and that's why, you know, women that may have a tight pelvic floor can also leak urine, because if their pelvic floor is tight and holding all the time, when their muscles need to be working, when they cough or sneeze or laugh or do any of those things, then their muscles are like, hey, we're too tired. You've been stressing and fatiguing us all day, so now they can't do the job that they're supposed to for us. So how you would start these, like I said, ideally you'd insert that lightest Kegel weight, and then for the easiest way, if you feel like you can't do a Kegel in a seated or standing position, then we'd go ahead and lay on our back. So then, go ahead and move my lube. So you go ahead and lay on your back just in this position. So I'm not gonna actually stay in this position because, you know, I'm pregnant, can't lay on my back for too long, and just for ease of explaining to you what you would do. But I will be able to show you all the other exercises. So what you're gonna do is insert that Kegel weight, okay? You'd put a little bit of Pixie Cup lube on it, separate those vaginal folds, and then insert that until you don't see the end of the weight. So you just want that string hanging out. Once you feel like it is in place and comfortable, then like I said, start on your back. And what you're going to do is you're going to pretend that you have a blueberry at the entrance of your vagina or anus. So in order to squeeze and lift those pelvic floor muscles, you're going to squeeze and lift that blueberry. So if you think about those muscles, right, they're gonna come together and they're gonna come up and in. So squeeze and lift those blueberries, but you don't want to squeeze so hard that you make blueberry jam. So what that means is if I'm doing a Kegel here and seated, right, you're not going to see me doing anything, essentially. So here I'm doing a Kegel right now, you don't see anything. If I was using my other muscles, so my glutes, my adductor muscles, you might see me lifting up and down, and that is what we want to avoid. Now, later on in the program, you do start to include some of those accessory muscles, and that's just because we know that strengthening those muscles is really important for our pelvic floor. But we want to be able to train and isolate those muscles so that you can prevent leakage in those instances that it's occurring. Whereas if we're always trying to use those accessory muscles, then the pelvic floor muscles don't actually coordinate at the right time. So we'll start from the beginning. Okay, so in order to do a Kegel, you're gonna think about squeezing and lifting that blueberry and then let go. There's actually two ways to do a Kegel as well. There's quick contractions and then there's endurance contractions. The reason we have both is because the quick muscles help kick in when we cough, sneeze, laugh, jump, any of those things. The endurance muscles are going to be our longer holding muscles, so they're going to be supportive for our pelvic organs, and they're going to help us if we're on a car trip and we have to pee and we need to hold for a longer period of time. So it's important to train both types of those muscles. So what I just told you about, so squeeze and lift, let go, squeeze and lift, let go, those are going to be more of those quick contractions, whereas an endurance contraction, you're going to squeeze and lift, you're going to hold for up to 10 seconds, and then you're going to let go. Another point to remember is when you're doing Kegels, you want to make sure that your belly is pulling in and not pushing out, okay? So really kind of the way I just explained how to do a Kegel is the most basic way. But the way I typically train my patients to do it is that I use the breath with it, okay? So we're gonna actually take a couple diaphragmatic breaths, and this is actually the way it's explained in the program as well. So you'll breathe in through your nose. You wanna fill your chest and your belly with air, and as we breathe in, we wanna think about our pelvic floor relaxing and lengthening, and then we exhale. You see my belly collapse in, so I'll go to the side. You can really see it on a pregnant belly. So inhale, open, exhale, belly comes in. Inhale, open, exhale, belly comes in, okay? So that's that lengthening component. So inhale, pelvic floor lengthens, and then as we exhale, that's when the pelvic floor squeezes and lifts. It comes up and in. So again, the way I would teach you to do a Kegel is you'd inhale, relax, exhale, squeeze and lift. Inhale, relax, exhale, squeeze and lift. Inhale, relax, exhale, squeeze and lift. Perfect, you got it. So then again, you could initiate your endurance contraction in the same way with the breath. You'd inhale, exhale, squeeze and lift my pelvic floor. I'm holding, and I'm gonna hold for up to 10 seconds. When I say hold, and in the program it says hold, we're not saying hold your breath. We're saying hold that muscle contraction. And then at the end, we'll let go. Okay, so that's Kegels, and we'll move on to the next exercise if nobody has any questions. So I feel remiss that I wouldn't want to skip over this, but I'm just going to do 2 additional exercises, like I said. So the Kegel is the most basic exercise, and then we're going to do one that's kind of in the middle, and then we're going to do one of the harder ones together. However, I think it's the second or the first listed exercise on there, which is the Transversus Abdominis. So we've got our hook lying Transversus Abdominis, so that's going to be that belly core muscle. We've got our pelvic floor contractions, and then we've got our pelvic brace. So the pelvic brace is just putting that belly squeeze and the pelvic floor together, and the pelvic brace is actually the ideal goal that you can do that pelvic brace before you progress to the other exercises. So really quick, I said I'm gonna do 3, but I'm gonna add that pelvic brace, okay? So what that's gonna look like is you're just gonna inhale, open, and then exhale, squeeze and lift. Now you see my belly coming in nicely. That's gonna be the TA. So Kegel and TA, so pulling that belly button towards your spine. So we're bracing that whole area, okay? So when we say don't move on to the harder ones until you can do that pelvic brace, that's why those first 3 exercises that are listed are so important. Get those basics down, start using those with functional activities, and then you can progress to those harder exercises. So the next exercise I'm gonna teach you to do with your Kegel weights is going to be a bridge, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to lay on your back, okay? We've got our Kegel weight in, okay? And you're going to activate that pelvic brace first. So you're gonna inhale, exhale, I squeeze and lift and hold. And then as I'm holding those, my pelvic floor and my TA in, I'm going to lift my hips up off the mat, and I'm gonna hold for up to 5 seconds, okay? And then I'd relax, I'd reset. Lift, hold for 5, and then rest. If this is too easy of an exercise, you can add a band, you can bring your heels off the ground, and then when you're at the top, you know, we could do some hip abduction. There's so many ways you can make an exercise harder, but if this is, you know, still a hard exercise for you, then I would just start with that. So that's the bridge. With all of our exercises, they're listed at doing 3 sets of 10, 1 to 2 times a day, especially for those basic exercises. But with the harder exercises, you know, I would do those 4 to 5 times a week if you can. And just remember that with those exercise progression, 3 sets of 10 is just what research has showed us to help gain muscle strength. Another question people often ask me is, do I have to do these exercises forever? Well, my short answer is yes. My long answer is that if you think about any muscle, so say, you know, very dramatically, we just say I stopped walking, right? My legs would stop working, and that's just because our body is use it or lose it. So what I typically tell people is train the pelvic floor muscles really hard or when I say really hard, I mean just within those parameters we've talked about, but for a series of 3 months. And so in 3 months, we typically see really good muscle gain. And then after those 3 months, if you feel pretty strong, you're meeting the goals that you want, you're not leaking anymore with exercise or whatever situation that you are leaking in, then you can just do maintenance exercises. So that's just doing, whenever you think about it, squeeze and lift those pelvic floor muscles when you're doing laundry, when you're doing your dishes. So just make sure you're applying it in that way. So we've done Kegels. We kind of did the pelvic brace. We did bridges. So like I said, I'm going to kind of combine the Kegels and the brace. So that's 1, 2, and then we'll do a standing exercise. So again, you can do your pelvic floor exercises in seated. That's a good exercise progression on its own. But then for standing, what we'll go ahead and do is a squat with pelvic brace. So this is also in the book. So what you'll do, hopefully you guys can still see me on here. So I'll sit like this. So I like to use a couch or a chair when I'm teaching people to do a squat because it's a little bit more functional. What I often see, and let me move this up so maybe you guys can see my head. There we go. So what I often see patients do when I say to do a squat is I'll see their knees come forward like this. Why I like to say to use a chair or something like that, it's more functional because it tells you to reach your butt back. So that's why I have this chair behind me. I can reach my butt back. I don't have to tap it, but I could. And that just gives you a good starting point, okay? So then what you're gonna do is you're going to inhale, exhale, pull in that brace. I'm pulling in my Kegel weights, and then I reach my butt back, come down, and then back up, okay? Inhale, exhale, pull those muscles up and in, reach back, okay? Just like that. One more time. Inhale, exhale, and reach back into that squat. So, again, don't progress to that squat unless you can hold that Kegel weight in. So as long as it's not falling out, then that's a good exercise to progress to. Again, in the program, the hardest one that we have listed is a jump. So you could make your squats even harder by adding a jump to that. And that's an especially functional exercise. If you know that you're having leakage, if you're going to the gym and you're doing any jumping exercises, double unders is one I hear a lot with my CrossFit crew. And then, jump roping, anything like that, or even just in an exercise class. There's typically a lot of exercises that involve some sort of impact or jumping. So we want to make sure that your pelvic floor muscles know how to engage in those situations. So those are the 3 exercises that we're going to go over today. I hope this was really, really helpful for you. And what I always say too is, if you start with the Kegel weights and you have questions about them, or you read the exercise program and you're having a hard time with it and you're just really feeling like you're not connecting with your pelvic floor, come see a pelvic floor therapist. We are more than happy to help. And a lot of times when you've done that research, you have that base knowledge of what you feel like you're supposed to do, but maybe just need some guidance on how to do it, then it can be a really, really beneficial tool to come and see us for a few visits, have that guidance, and then be able to progress and meet your goals. Because let's be honest, no one wants to pee their pants. No one wants to have a weak pelvic floor. No one wants to experience pelvic floor prolapse, and we can help you in those goals. So thank you so much for tuning in. I will stick around for just a couple, I won't say minutes because usually it's just a long time with me sitting. But if you are here and you have any questions, you can ask questions in the question box. If you do jump on and watch this later, The Pixie Cup team will reach out to me if you do have any questions on there, and they'll be so great to let me answer some of those questions as well. But if not, you can always follow me on Instagram, Ali Schermer DPT, and I am so happy to help anybody that has any questions. You can also message the Pixie Cup team, and they always reach out to me, and I can get you connected that way. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. I'm gonna go watch the Chiefs play, so go Chiefs, and I hope you have a great day.